All right. Here we are. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We are live here on Zoom, but we also are streaming live to LinkedIn. So, for those in the LinkedIn sphere joining us from where you are, thank you so much. We are here to dig in to talk about how Sessionboard has helped associations save hundreds of organizing hours. And I'm really excited for what we've drummed up here today. Before we get started and before we dive in, I would love to just do a little bit of housekeeping. My name's Brian Funk here with Sessionboard. And today we have a really wonderful special surprise guest. Kristin Shoop is joining us for a live conversation, and she's really going to be talking through what her life looked like before and after onboarding onto the Sessionboard platform. So, we didn't just want to do a product demo here today. We wanted to get really tangible with real world, real use experience. And Kristin is phenomenal. If you don't already know her, you are going to absolutely fall in love. She's fantastic. And then I'm going to hand it over to the Sessionboard team with Andrew and Megan for a live demo. And we want to make sure that you can have your questions answered. So at the end of this, we're going to have the ability for folks to turn on their video, turn on their camera and mic, if you feel so comfortable from where you're streaming from. And we just want to open up an open conversation and dive deeper, answer questions. So we are recording. This will be available on demand. And in the chat, let's get active. Let us know what questions you have throughout. I'll make sure to keep an eye on the chat to pull in your questions into the conversation and help bubble them up for Andrew and Megan during the demo. And again, we'll do Q&A at the end. But let us know where you're calling in from. Who are you with? What's your role? We just would love to learn more about who's joined us here in the room today. All right, let's just dive in and do this. I am so excited to welcome a special guest here with us today. Kristin Shoop is a certified image consultant and a certified protocol and etiquette trainer with over 25 years experience in the meetings, conference, training, and consulting arenas. She has successfully navigated many, many, many settings across her career, which includes the corporate, academic, state government, military, association, nonprofit, international organizations, and more. And as proof of her being here today, she believes deeply in the power of collaboration and the adoption of technology to advance the work that we're doing to provide the best possible experience for the end user. All right, Kristin,
Well,
thanks
how
so much
about
for joining us here today.
that? Thank you, Brian. It is really a pleasure. I am a huge Sessionboard fan because honestly, and I know we'll talk about it, but results. It has given phenomenal results. I know many of my fellow association colleagues out there might also have small teams, or maybe they have a larger team but have a smaller circle that they work within to get different projects done, and it's made all the difference. So I'm really pleased to be here to share some of that.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'd love to rewind the clock. And I'm also, just so the audience knows, and so Andrew and Megan, like, if you guys have chime in if you guys have questions, or if you want to double click on anything that Kristin has to share. I value the diverse perspectives we have here. So open conversation. Kristin, I think to just get us started and to level set, can you tell us a little bit more? I kind of want to do a two-part here. What is it? Can you just tell us a little bit about your event so that we can understand, your unique world and arena? And then after that, I'd love to just dive into paint us a picture of what your life looked like before Sessionboard. Like, what were your
Nice.
frustration points, your challenges, the things you were looking to solve for? So yeah, I think it'd be helpful to learn a little bit about your event at ACES. And then we can kind of dive into what life looked like prior to Sessionboard.
Yes, of course. Yeah, before I met Andrew and all the magic started. So ACES is awesome. It's a society for editing. So we are a nonprofit association for editors anywhere that do the written word and work on the written word. So we cover quite a few genres of editing, as you can imagine. It can cover technical, medical, government, corporate, magazine, newspaper. Um, there's books, website content, social media content, all those things. So it's quite a bit. And twice a year, we put on a conference. We have an in-person conference in the spring, and that rotates all around the US to try to accommodate, different parts of our membership base. And then we have a virtual every fall that we do. So they have both been really well attended, and it's primarily an educational conference. So that's where the call for sessions portion, which we'll talk about, comes in. But it's also a really great opportunity to network and collaborate and meet, others that are in your area, or perhaps learn from a different type of editor. It has career information. It really covers a lot of different topics. So we have a very diverse audience and a very diverse lineup, in all of our sessions. So it's a lot of fun. I love doing it. It's a wonderful part of my role there. And now I love it more because I have Sessionboard.
You can imagine
Love
the
it.
proofreading I did sending emails to Kristin across our sales process.
Amazing. So prior to being on Sessionboard, can you just help paint a picture for what your day-to-day looked like? What were you looking to improve and solve for? I'm sure there's a lot of rabbit holes we can dive down, but would just love to paint that picture.
Yeah, I'll give you sort of the wave top. So at each of our conferences, we do anywhere between like 35 and upwards of 50 different educational sessions. Plus we have general sessions, and I just started Lunch and Learn. So all different kinds of sessions. So in my old world, when I was, did my call for sessions to try to encourage speakers to apply, and then of course it's the review process, they would apply through our LMS system. We would set up a form in that LMS system, and they would apply. They would submit their information, and they were submitting a proposal. So you would get a title, a description, and then their bio and all of that. And then once that was closed and finished, then I had to basically take a really fancy Excel sheet, make it a little easier to read because it was too much information. And then I would share that with my session evaluation committee, who we would add, 10 to 15 different columns at least to that spreadsheet, so they could access it. They could, explain how they felt about each one. And then we would, I had to design a ranking thing, which meant I had to do some math in there. And then we would go through it, and I would essentially pick out, with their help, the sessions. And then you have to, of course, go back to all the speakers. I had to individually in my email, I had to figure out who I was emailing. So there's lots of cutting and pasting in my universe at that point. Contact them, email them, come back, tell your no thank yous, the same thing. And then you have a pool of maybe some maybes, right? In case some say no, and then you want to fill in. So lots of cutting and pasting, emailing. And I have another column for tracking all of this. Like, did I email them? I think I emailed them. I'm pretty sure I emailed them. No, did I? Go back and check. I did email them. Okay, good. And then do all that. And then you have to wait for the responses, and you have to track what they said. And then once you do all that, then it was great. This is awesome. You're on board. Now you get to check off all the boxes of, yes, you agree to our code of conduct, our non-discrimination policy, the fact that you're going to be available for these 3 days of the conference. Get all that. It was every single part of the process. There was a spreadsheet, and then ultimately there was a fabulous Google Drive folder. And then, and then even after you have the sessions identified, all of your things sorted, everyone's agreed, you get all that done. And then guess what? We do a DEI review. So then that necessitated more spreadsheets, more touches on different Google Drive folders, more tracking. Was it okay? Were there suggestions? And then you have to do the schedule, right? And then you have to inform speakers. So there was so much of my world that was in Google Drive documents, Google folders, our LMS system, and honestly, my poor email box. And I maintain 4 of them, and they could, depending on where they may have met me before, I might source an email out of this box, and my greatest intention was keep everything in that one box, make it so pretty and easy to find, but they might email me in 2 other boxes. And then they might email me sometimes in those boxes, but sometimes in the other box.
Yep.
So it was very, very difficult to track that many things, right? And then remember, it's not just 1 speaker per session. They could have up to 4. So you're really trying to consolidate things. And you know, we got it done. I'm, if nothing else, I can come up with a system. So we got it done and everybody did a great job. But the number of touches on each file was amazing.
Yep.
Lots of my time, because I had to really orchestrate all of those touches and all of the double checks. Did I email them? I think we, yeah, you know, because you don't know it's sitting in an email somewhere with the answer. It's not on a document. And if it was in the column, did I remember to do all of them? Well, I did 78. Maybe I forgot. I did 76 and I forgot to. So we did it. And we made it work, but it was an enormous amount of organizational effort.
Yeah. So if I recall, I'm trying to find the metric here. I just found it. So because of the way it was being managed, the amount of touch points that all of the content and the process and the speaker selection was getting across, not just you, but the entire team.
Right.
A
And we had
lot of
yeah.
information. Zoom, thumbs up. I talk with my hands, and this is what we run into. But also, like, it's like the accuracy of the data that you're managing is completely reliant on like human input, attention to detail. And I mean, what I'm hearing is like time consuming.
Well, there's a lot
I
of
also,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
You want to be really careful, and you want to honor the data that you have. And so you're right. It was a lot of double checking. Yeah.
yeah. And I relate to this because in the events that I've managed in the past, we also were using like Google spreadsheets that had 10 tabs across several teams, departments. But I think that the stat that I was looking to pull up was, all in all, through this process, you were spending 23 8-hour workdays only on the speaker management
Yes.
portion, which is
Yeah.
just an incredible amount of time.
Right. Onboarding, in addition to just getting them, right? You have to onboard them. So, I mean, it continues. Did they send you and oh, I haven't even gotten to the part where they actually send you their presentation.
Yeah. So there's the whole content management.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Component as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were making the transition to Sessionboard, I think like what were some of the areas that I think drew you in the most, that you realized like, oh, I see a solution to our problem here. I see how we can manage this more effectively, save our team's time, keep data and information more up to date. I'm kind of curious, like, what was the hook that really pulled you in?
That is such a wonderful question for me, because I love my data. And I love my data to be contained, secure, and organized. And I would love to know that all my touch points are in one spot. So when Andrew showed me that I could not just solicit in the call for sessions, right, and get things to vote, but my evaluators could also be in Sessionboard, and I could maintain the integrity of that entire process within Sessionboard. I have everything in there. I don't need to worry about different spreadsheets. Did that one get it? They have access to the same exact information that's in there. I didn't put it there. The speaker put it there, which is great. Um, and then also beyond the evaluation process, just managing the speakers once they've onboarded, right? I think the other thing that I lit up and I was like, wait, what, Andrew? And I actually I can essentially build, and I have it right now for my conference, a library of resources for my speakers. I don't have to email them 14 times about, oh, here's an update to what I send, or oh, here's another resource. All I have to do is say, here's the files you have access to. I explain each one and have fun with the library. It's there for you if it's helpful and if you need it. And there's timelines and guidelines, and it really cut back on the back and forth as well, which was another component of the time
Mm.
where I was having to educate, re-educate, or remind, or, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't send that out. Oh my goodness, let me get that out to everybody. So it really cut back on the wondering part. Because Sessionboard has the email component where I can originate all my speaker communications originate from Sessionboard. So I can go back and see when I emailed them to which audiences I emailed. And if a speaker's having, issues that I can say and they never got it, I can say, well, you can check your inbox. You might want to check maybe, this date, this date, this date, and this date, and at these times. And then if you're not getting it, you're right. There's an issue with your email, and let's address that and let's figure out what's going on. But at least I have touch points where I can specify so easily by just pulling up their name. It'll list all the emails sent to that one person. It made it so easy. So it's sort of, for me, it was highlights of data organization and consolidation, right? And not wondering anymore. I could just find out.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you've eliminated the kind of the multi-system chaos in your
Just
process
trying
as
to
well.
track everything. The touch points became much more streamlined. And I might be getting ahead of your questions, but the other thing that really lit my eyes up was how Andrew showed me that Sessionboard has a phenomenal support system, right? Not just for me, but also for my speakers, which was important because as much as I love to help my speakers, so I'm happy to do that. And I'm pretty well versed in Sessionboard, but if it's a problem that's really originating from their computer or something else, I'm not going to be your best bet. And Sessionboard does several things, but among them, they have videos, which are so precious to me. Andrew, please keep them coming. They are great for me. Like I train myself, right? And so poor Jasmine doesn't have to get all thousands of my questions. She only gets about 480. And then I can also share videos with my speakers and say, hey, here's a great video on how to do that. And then the best part of all this is really for my volunteers who so kindly are giving me their time. And as a support mechanism, I can say, hey, session evaluators, here's a really wonderful video, and Sessionboard walks you through step by step from the login process all the way through how you use the evaluator program to help you, which I think is phenomenal because people learn differently, right? You can write it down, but if you see it and you have access to keep replaying it and it shows you the screens, it's just wonderful. And that really took me, again, time out of the how do I, Kristin, hot seat, at least some of the time, right?
Yeah, so you have that coaching support. I actually have to tell you, Kristin, just so everyone knows, Kristin was raving to me earlier this week about Jasmine, one of our customer success reps, and I did give her I gave her a shout out and let her know that you sang her praises. But I mean, I'm a big believer that if you're looking for technology transformation, if you're looking to make a systems change, I'm a marketer and I love alliteration, but I just think that like systems innovation isn't just about changing a platform. You are changing processes and you're also partnering with people. And so I think even as all of you are evaluating your event technology, I think it's what is beyond the platform. And I think it's even something that drew me into Sessionboard was just the caliber of people that come from the industry that believe in the product. And I think that also reinforces the power of the product. So got my alliteration there for people, processes, and platforms.
There you
Andrew,
go.
I feel like I saw you leaning in a minute ago. Did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say Jasmine is truly one of the best. She's great to have around, and it really is satisfying to hear from Kristin around the peace of mind that was given to her throughout this process, as far as communication. The library, as you refer to it, as we go through it today, we'll refer to it as the portal, but being that one-stop shop for speakers is really great. Always very great to get this type of feedback and excited to continue the discussion.
Beautiful. I think, Kristin, I'm also curious, as you were talking, the product has not only had an impact on your team, but it from the speaker experience, like, can you speak to like how a speaker's engagement with ACEs has shifted because of the ability to use this?
Absolutely. That was one of the things we were also focused on was, you want to grow your organization, you want to grow your organization's, outreach, and Sessionboard really made that possible just because it's a very polished, and again, it's data that is secure, it's organized, and there's constantly text helping with directions, how-tos, and videos. And I think for a speaker, it was really a very empowering and also positive experience to really go into Sessionboard and handle everything that they needed to do. And it wasn't a process of relying on me to answer an email because they pulled up my old form in the LMS and the previous, existence that we had. And that was an LMS issue that I had to answer, and they couldn't do anything. They had to wait on me. So it empowered them so that they could do it when it was convenient for them. They really felt supported with all the resources that they had, and everything is just clear. What was the deadline again? Oh, that's right. What did she say again about that? Everything's in there. You don't have to say, well, I did the form, but now I'm out of that form and I can't get it back. And I don't remember what they said. Because right, there's a lot of detail in there. So, now they have all that information constantly at their fingertips. And once you have that Sessionboard experience or call for sessions, if you continue through the process, it's using the same system. So instant comfort level of, oh yeah, I go back into Sessionboard. And they're uploading their content there as we speak. Deadlines tomorrow midnight, guys. So if anyone's listening, so it's a constant just piece of knowing, well, I go to Sessionboard. I know that's where I start. And I know Kristin has resources in there, and I know that's where I would go to find something out. And it just made it streamlined for them. And I think probably I can't measure it without being in their shoes, but my logical brain says they also saves time. And I think the experience was just more pleasant because less mystery, less waiting, and access to data. If you empower people with information, that's really I think it's an important thing to do. If you're going to collaborate with them and try to work with them, you have to at least have the courtesy of trying to provide a pathway for them. And that's what Sessionboard did. They made a very clear pathway. Rather than me out there with my little sticks directing traffic. And I like to think that I did a pretty good job of it, but no, was it anywhere the same? Absolutely not. No, there's no way I could reenact myself what Sessionboard does. No way. And I also really emphasize when you have a staff, speakers, and for us, we do have some volunteers that are in there for session evaluations and for our DEI review. And again, what a wonderful way to welcome someone who is gracious enough to offer their time and expertise to support a really important thing for our organization. So I think it really felt good to give that consistent experience.
I love that. And I think the other big takeaway that I have, just thinking about how much time your team used to spend and you used to spend, you all have experienced a whopping 66% reduction in time spent managing your speakers and event content, which is just like, whoa, the things that we can do with that time saved is incredibly powerful. And I'm being mindful of time. I feel like we could probably spend an hour diving into all the facets of your experience here, and we might have some time at the end to continue, but I'd love to hand it off to Andrew and Megan to really showcase and take us behind the scenes of the product so that we can pair um, your experience and the benefits that you're receiving, with a walkthrough of, what does it look like when you're inside of the product managing your event content and your speakers. So, Kristin, thanks so much for joining and for sharing. We so appreciate you. And we'll be back here at the end, folks, but I'm going to hand it off to Andrew and Megan to introduce themselves and walk through the back end of Sessionboard.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Kristin. That was such a great way to start off this conversation. And this is actually the first time that we're doing a live product demo. So I'm going to kick things off and then hand it over to Andrew, but we don't have a lot of time. So we're going to keep this pretty high level. We understand that each event and association's needs are a bit unique and different. So we're happy to schedule time after this to talk through in specifics based on your processes. Really a quick introduction for myself. I'm Megan Saad. I'm part of the Sessionboard team, and I come from the association world. I was the global marketing director at an association and responsible for driving attendance to yearly expos and events. So was really rooted in the program planning process. What Kristin was describing was really speaking to me because that was my day-to-day, living in spreadsheets, disjointed processes. And that's why I loved hearing about Sessionboard from Andrew, actually, originally, because it was going to streamline those processes, break down silos, and really make my day-to-day easier. So the rest is history because now I'm on the team. But I'm going to pull up my screen and start to walk through what the back-end experience is like within the platform. Andrew, can you help me out and let me know that you can see my screen?
The classic question. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay,
Looks good.
It's my least favorite question to ask. Can you see my screen? So right here, what we see is the dashboard. This gives you a pulse of what's happening within the system. We can see a summary of activity, like content that's coming in, status of sessions that we have in different buckets and categories, even submissions as they start to come through if you're in that part of the process. One thing I want to call out here is that, as Kristin described, we have an awesome customer success team. So they are your resource and they're going to onboard you right from the beginning as far as setting up your event, name, branding details, what you're using the platform for to manage speakers, but also potentially sponsors and exhibitors and their onboarding, and also inviting your event team who's going to be logging into the system to collaborate. So admin users, evaluators, content owners, you name it, we have the permissions. If we don't, we can actually customize permissions and then set their roles from there. Oftentimes, the starting point in a program planning cycle starts with a call for speakers, call for presentations. So I'm going to start there, but show what it would look like for your submitters, because this is one of the first points that your branding is going to be on display. This, and then later on your speaker portals, but this would be your organization's logo, where you can outline the program that you're planning, the topics that you are hoping to receive, linking out to any resources, and then setting expectations for the timeline of when you'll have this window open. And then continuing to the form, here's where you start to gather all of the details from your submitters. So I'll show you in a moment how all of this is customizable, but you can start to see what the speaker's experience looks like right from the beginning. Going back to the dashboard right here with the forms, I'm going to go to Manage Forms and Edit. And this is the back-end view of what we just saw. So this is where we could outline the program information, external resources. Next up are session details. You'll see title and description are baked in. Those are the mandatory fields, but then we can add anything else that we want to collect at this point. We use conditional logic, which is where you'll see these questions put and configured here. We can also set required or not required, and then very easy to add a new field here, any type of field name, learning objectives can be one example, field type. So that's where the customization comes in. And then speaker information. So very similar to the session page, what's required, first name, last name, email, and then we can add in additional details here. Most of this sometimes is reserved for when we're onboarding speakers once they're accepted and part of your event. But if you want to gather certain information at this point, you can do so and also make that required. One call out is mobile phone. If you make this required, then you'll have the capability to communicate with speakers, both email and via SMS text message. And that's it. Form settings, setting a close date, what admins will be notified when a new session is submitted. I'm going to notify Andrew. And then a confirmation message that will go to your submitters, thanking them for their submission and setting expectations from there. So very easy to get your form up and ready to go and kick off the process. Next step often is evaluation. Coming from an association background, I know that programs really rely on industry leaders, member committees that are often volunteers. So we also love the experience that the platform provides for evaluators to log in, see the sessions that they've been assigned to review, and then go in and score as needed. For an evaluation plan, setting that up is also easy and simple. Setting up the name of the plan, instructions for your evaluators. You can enable anonymized review if you want to leave off certain details of the submitter. And then next, I would select my evaluators. In this case, I'm making Andrew and myself the evaluators. And then here we're doing the scoring. So this we can do on a value base, 1 through 5. We can set colors, enable a rubric for certain criteria, just has to equal 100%, and even have open-ended feedback and comments. And then here is where we pick which fields are actually going to pull through from the form submission process and what your evaluators would see. And lastly, you can filter this. So if you have tracks, different formats, and evaluators are going to be looking at different parts of your program, we can start to set filters from here. I can do levels, introductory, and then set it from there. And then once evaluation is complete, you can export individual and cumulative grade reports to see how the sessions have scored, and then determine which ones will be part of your program from there. Okay, and then I'm going to the agenda view. I'm going to scroll over a bit. One thing I want to point out for the agenda view, we have different categories that we can start to bucket sessions in: accept, pending, declined. Anything that's accepted is going to push to your agenda view and as you build out the program. I also want to point out the settings that we have, often done at the onset, and setting up your event is filling out the settings. We can do it by room in the venue that you're hosting your event, by track, which have colors assigned to them, levels, formats are big. We know these days each event has various formats: lightning talks, roundtables, panels, you name it. All of that can be set here. Also languages. And then going back to the agenda builder, we can look at it by day, by week, month, room. We can have different dashboards. People love dashboards. I also love dashboards. But going to the week view, this is how you start to see your event coming together. So you can get conflict detection if you have a room or a speaker double booked. You can easily drag and drop to make changes to a session time. In this event that I have hovering over in particular, you can have a parent-child session. So in this case, I added a symposium, which is a one-day event. And during that symposium, I have sub-sessions within it. And that's what that looks like. These little, 4 sessions, sub-sessions within a parent. And going back to the main details, here's where I pulled it up to see the title: description, start and end time, credits if you have accreditation program, and then those settings that we just walked through would all populate here. So you can easily make changes to track, format, what have you. event save. From there. All right, Andrew, I'm gonna pass it over to you. Stop share.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. And just before I start sharing my screen, wanted to call out one of the most common use cases for those sub sessions that Megan was talking about were whenever we're working with an association that gets multiple or lots of abstract submissions and they build out their full sessions with their abstracts. So that is one of the ways that we've handled that. Now, one of the areas that Kristin talked about was being able to set up her speaker portal. So I just wanted to dive into what that looks like for your team and then for your speakers. So for this, just wanted to call out just a few things here. So you can set up some different settings for your speakers. Wanted to also call out, you can create custom portals for your different types of speakers. So you may have different needs from your keynote than from your lightning talk or from your poster presentation, from your oral presentations. So just wanted to call that out. But then from there, you can set up weekly digest emails. So cutting out on the back and forth all the time, keeping the speakers up to date on what's coming up, what's due. You can also do things for your speakers that may not always be on time. We call this extend task deadline. So though it may show December 27th, you'll still accept it on the 29th. So just wanted to call that out there. But then you can create different types of tasks. So if you want them to accept terms and conditions, you want them to register for meetings, you want them to complete their outlines, you could set these with different due dates as well as making them required or not. With the, you see here, booked hotel and register for meeting, what we actually did was set different links within there. So it would take them out of the platform, but still creating a one-stop shop for the speaker. We can also collect forms. So if you have additional questions that you need to ask your speakers, we've seen anything from dietary restrictions to topics that they cannot discuss, things of that nature. And then you can also collect files. So if you want to take in a company logo, if you want to take in their resume, again, this is very configurable based off of the needs of this particular group of speakers. And then from there, you can also share different files and assign wiki pages. So essentially, once again, not to overbear on this, but you create a one-stop shop for those speakers. And what that looks like from your speakers, and Megan called out the branding for your event. So you're going to have your logo here as well as that hero banner in the back you're able to customize. Then the speaker will be able to see the sessions that they're a part of that have been accepted. This is where, as we get towards the later stages of your planning, they're able to upload their final presentations. So you can see here, it can accept up to 2 gigs on the file that is uploaded. And you can see any of the past files that you uploaded. If the admin had made any comments on it that they wanted you to change, you can respond to those in here as well. But also on here, you're able to view your different tasks. So as a speaker, I can see what I have upcoming. So I need to accept my terms and conditions. I can mark that as complete. You can also do things like register for the meeting. So if you wanted to set a link out, maybe you're using another registration platform, you can see ACEs here. I can set up I can go in and register. I can also do things like upload files. So again, all the tasks that you assign, they're able to drag and drop their files into the platform. And then from there, if I wanted to fill out an additional information, you can see here, I'm taking in my bio, headshot, all this is uploaded. I can submit this, and this is going to be attached to my record. Now, the last couple of things here, if you wanted to share certain files for them, so maybe you have a convention center layout, or maybe you just wanted to send them tips, they can access all of these within the platform. They can download a PDF that you have shared with them. And then again, maybe you have your FAQs within here. All of this, again, just one more time, creating a one-stop shop for the speaker. Now, all the tasks that your speakers are doing here, you're actually able to track. So if I go into my speakers area, and you could set up different views. So if you wanted to set this for different types of speakers, I set this one as a general task where I can see what my speakers have done and what they haven't done. And I can filter this down into my accepted, if I wanted to see who hasn't done a particular task, so let's see who hasn't booked hotel. Complete. And then from here, if I wanted to send a notification to these folks, whether that be through email or SMS, we could send that out. Just one quick note on that email, we can set up a custom email domain. So it's coming from ACES or it's coming from your association rather than from a no reply at sessionboard.com. And then as we get closer to the meeting, we have all of our items. We've collected our content. You're able to easily download all of the presentations in one place that can break down by date, room, session. So all those items that we saw while Megan was showing the agenda. So making it easy to hand off to your on-site team. No more having to share a gigantic box folder with your different AV providers, making sure it's in the right room, things of that nature. It'll break all of it down for you that way. And then I'm going to stop right there and hand it back to Brian.
Thanks for diving in. I did see that Nikki had a question in the chat. Nikki asked if the presentation upload is connected to Orchestrate.
Yeah, so that is Freeman's presentation management system, and we do have an integration with them to where we would set up the flow of that content.
Beautiful. I'm curious, just in the final few minutes that we have left here, if anyone does have any pressing questions, whether it's for Andrew and Megan, or if anyone has questions specifically for Kristin, we really welcome them. So drop those in the chat. We would love to answer them. And with the last few minutes we have here, I have a few announcements at the end, but I think Kristin, I'd love to circle back to you for a moment. And you've been through the process, right? Like you told us about your before journey. You've onboarded onto Sessionboard. You're now in your next event cycle on the platform. For those tuning in today, I guess what's just one piece of advice that you have for them as they navigate their event technology journey?
I think my advice would be really be open-minded when you're looking at it, and at the same time, really advocate for what your organization needs from the process and what would honor the experience you want to provide your speakers. Just another huge shout out to Andrew and Jasmine, and I know there's many in the team, but they're the ones that happen to get most of my questions. Is as I was going through Sessionboard and onboarding, there were just certain things that I was like, oh, you know what? And I didn't know until I would get into it and try it. So it was literally sort of, discovering as I went. I would ask if a feature could be modified, or maybe have they thought maybe we could do it this way instead of that way, or what's the best way that I could achieve this goal? Because I'm pretty sure it's in here, but I'm not sure I'm tracking what might be the best option for me. And asking those questions and really partnering with Sessionboard, to me, made all the difference of efficiencies and just, I never felt like, oh, I have this great fancy product and I don't know how to, get a Porsche. You don't know how to drive it. What fun is that? So, you really want to make sure you're getting what you want out of it. And a total bonus for me was I was able to get with Jasmine and say, hey, what do you think if I actually did my DEI review in here? I mean, I do the session evaluations. It's not the same kind of evaluation, but it is a review process. And she was like, absolutely. And we worked together and she walked me through what the options were. I chose the one that worked for my process. Done. So
amazing. So
yeah.
you're iterating and using the platform beyond the original use case that you were seeking a solution for. That's cool.
So just ask the question, because you never know what the answer could be.
I love that. I love that. Well, I think that's a great transition point. If anyone does have more questions about, more specifically about your own personal use cases in terms of how you're looking to adopt more modern, innovative event technology that can help you optimize your event content and speaker management. Andrew and Megan will be following up. And you can also head on over to sessionboard.com/contact. And you can also submit to have a more personalized demo experience as it relates to your business and your event. And I also want, and I'm also going to drop this in the chat here if I can find it. It disappeared on me. Boom. But Andrew and Megan will also be following up. And Kristin, I'd also just love to know if people want to reach out to Kristin, ask you questions,
Sure.
individually, what's the best way that people can reach you?
I will put my email in here, but you're welcome to email me. Let me.
Awesome. I love that.
Okay, it's simple. Let's hope. I do have my glasses on, but I was like, oh, did I type that right? So it's my name, Kristin Shoop at aceseditors.org. So happy to answer any questions.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. This was a ton of fun. The 45 minutes went by way too fast, but Kristin, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your perspective, your experience. And you're an absolute joy to work with. So it's our honor and our privilege. And Andrew and Megan, thanks for diving deep on the product here with us today. We will be in touch with more details, but I also want to let you know that our speaker training series continues this Thursday, and we're actually going to be joined by the Google Cloud team, Mark Ferrone, the head of event content over at Google Cloud, and their lead speaker trainer, Allison Pierce, will be sharing a bit of the behind the scenes magic on how Google approaches speaker training. So you will get a follow-up email from me with the link to register if you'd like to join that conversation, which will go live in about 48 hours. But thank you all for joining us today. We really value your time, and best of luck as we close out summer and head into fall event season. I know we're all ramping up. So until next time, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Appreciate your time.